Welcome to Fearless Conversations, a podcast by free thinkers of the world. The content within this episode is intended for mature audiences only. Hi, welcome to Fearless Conversations. I'm Euge, and I'm here with my co-host,
Mariano.
And today we are going to have a conversation with Alberto Hamonet. Alberto is a multidisciplinary artist currently working through an MFA Studio in art at University of California, Davis. Hi, Alberto.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Nice to have you
Thank
here.
You so much. Thank you so much for being with us.
So,
it's my pleasure.
You're a multidisciplinary artist, currently based in California, and you recently had a show for Lasting Energy. Would you like to tell us about your show?
Yeah. So currently I'm coming to you from my studio at school at UC Davis, University of California, Davis, which is the best studio I've ever had. It's I'm going to give you a little background just because I find it so interesting. But it's historically, this building was a World War I bunker, and then it was converted into classrooms for ceramic studios. If you hear any sort of mechanical, industrial sounds, it's because there's a lot going on outside these walls. And then the building, it's called TB9, as in Temporary Building 9, was converted into artist studios, and this is where the art department at UC Davis was founded in the 60s by a group of anti-establishment, sort of counterculture artists that made an exodus from the East Coast in New York City and landed in this small agricultural town, which is essentially the center point between Sacramento and San Francisco. So Davis, so more background, I landed here under similar circumstances. I'd left New York on a creative, countrywide Dairy Bay, an aimless meandering with my dog act, and somehow manifested this opportunity and ended up here, I never planned on getting a master's or anything, but then I realized that I had the right credentials and that it would be a good gig. So anyway, so I'm here, and historically very famous artists have been in the studio, so there's all this energy. So I'm coming to you from a place that's very charged creatively for me and historically for many others, And we'll get into it more later, but I feel that some of these old artist ghosts are working through me. It's a very collaborative experience. When places are this,
the
charged.
Energy of people definitely stay in places they work and they create. Do you all know Charlie Garcia, the musician, the Argentine musician? I'm currently working with a friend, and she's creating in the studio he used to record, and they are having a mural about him, and it's like the energy, you can sense it. So that's awesome. The story of a place inspires you as well.
Yeah, and so you asked me about the show, not the studio, but I shared. I had a show with my first.
That's an interesting point. Is that something that took you by surprise? Is that what you expected when you went there?
No, not at all. And in fact, I was halfway through my first year here before I even discovered any of this lineage. Which when I did discover it, it helped. It essentially placed me in a creative lineage and introduced me to, we have to look at time in a non-linear form. So essentially I met my spiritual compatriots, though many of them are not around anymore and we didn't meet personally. When you see the work and you see the thought patterns and the similarities and, creativity and time, there are these grooves, almost like in a record. And I feel like I fell into this groove very karmically. And then I look around and notice the details of where I've landed and realize, oh, this isn't random at all. This has happened before. I'm just the most, contemporary iteration of it. So no, I had no idea. I moved here because I fell in love, and my partner was moving to California. She moved to Los Angeles, 6 hours south. But I was like, I need to figure out a way to get to California from Detroit. No, so I had no idea. But I surrendered to the goddess and landed here.
Yeah, I think, oh, but it's amazing how it takes courage. You know, you had to make a big decision to cross the country and go to a new place, and that takes courage and also an open mind, an open heart, and then it's amazing how you find your place. I mean, I had no idea you found this studio. This is all new for me. We haven't spoken for also like a year or so, and and some people, you know, we like that type of message. Is that first you gotta move, you gotta take action, you gotta try things, you know, take risk. So anyway, that's one example, but you're doing a whole bunch of different things. So.
And it almost, I like what you say. You have to move, you have to mobilize. That's the first step, is be active. You know what I mean? Because it's almost as if you have to charge. I'm going to use a lot of language that I tend to use, and I'm not really going to censor myself much. And if it sounds woohee, then it is. It's very woohee. But essentially, you have to charge your karmic batteries to get them to work most potently. You know, so you have to move. You have to put your intention out there, and you have to physically, you know, embody what it is that you're searching for. And if that's mobility, if that's growth, if that's manifestation, then that requires a lot of movement. And it's so practical when you think about it that way, you know? But no.
And you went after a positive feeling. You were going after someone that was a place of love, and, you know, and nothing bad can come from that, from taking that type of risk. You know?
Totally. Okay. And speaking to that, how brave you have to be. I mean, you know, I had a really great career in New York. You know, and I still do, but in a really great situation, and a really amazing community, and a stronghold of support and energy and resources. And, you know, I was there for 13 years straight, just amassing and building this really I'm very proud of the work I did there. But then you sort of get a little peek of the horizon, and you got to be able to leave everything you know behind too. You know, I mean, not everyone has to go through such an intense process, but not everyone gets such intense results. So you know what I mean?
Well, and also it's so important to build that community and that success. It's a huge sacrifice and effort, but then you get comfortable and you have a routine and stuff, and then sometimes because of love or opportunities, you got to take that leap. And now I mean, it sounds like you're growing and doing new things, and it's just amazing. So, but okay, I have some questions for you. I don't want to sidetrack.
No, totally. But yeah. I was also going to say just quickly, because you
go ahead.
I'm extremely comfortable right now. You know, my first year was a little discombobulated. I didn't know where I was landing, but I moved into this amazing apartment that's so comfortable and quiet, and it's 3 blocks away from here, 2 blocks from the tennis court, 2 blocks from the yoga studio. And you know what I mean? Like 1 block from the farmer's market. Everything you could ever imagine grows. Just like the best fruit and vegetables and meat, and anything you eat is the best it can be here. And I'm so comfortable. And there's a definitive finality to it. I graduate in 8 months. You know what I mean? The studio is no longer mine in 10 months. Like and I want to move in with someone I love, and I want to. So now there's this extreme comfort that I know for sure I'm going to have to give up, and that's also its own weird thing. You know what I mean? It's a little bit like.
And how is it different from how you were internally, spiritually, emotionally in New York compared to what you're experiencing now? Because I see a different glow. I see something different, but I don't know how to express it. How would you express it?
Well, I have all the New York cities are unhealthy places in nature, in their very nature. And though they can cause and promote and sustain incredibly healthy things, in their bare, down to brass tacks, cities are not healthy. You know what I mean? And a city with New York without much money is a constant hustle. and I was convinced I had to do it, as many people are. You know, people feel they need to move to major cities and make a name for themselves and have careers to be proud of. So if that's anyone watching this or anything, if that's your calling, there's nothing else you should do in the world. But I reached my goals, and now I'm sitting here and I get to work out half the day, paint the other half, you know, and eat. I'm the healthiest I've ever been. You know, I'm exercising, like, and I'm 33. You know what I mean? I'm actually, I'm like, not, you know, and you know this. I'm an athlete for the first time in my entire life. Now, in the last 2 years, you know, tennis is like one of the great loves of my life. So
tennis,
it's resources and space. You know, there's no space in New York. Everyone's congested, and if you're there, it's labored breathing. Here, Northern California, I have a grove of redwood trees outside my window. I get to walk over there and breathe that air every day. It's just, we need nature and we need space, you know?
Yeah, but
so,
then
yeah,
you have
I think
the
that's
city,
what it is.
and the city, to, you know, why do so many people go to the city? You have the diversity and maybe opportunities and things like that. But yeah, it can eat you, it can swallow you.
College towns are extremely diverse. Major universities. Well, you know what I mean? It's University of California. It's like a major university. So the diversity here actually totally satiates my need for it. I'm happy with it. But yes, I know. And nothing.
No, I don't know that. You know, that's great to know. So because you are a very open, diverse person. And if you had all different, you know, if it's a community that traditional and homogeneous type, then it might not be your type of thing. But it sounds like you found that great balance of nature and health and exercise, but you still have that diversity, and you're doing what you love. So
yeah, and my needs, you know, are, I have a long history in nightlife. I threw parties in New York City 6 days a week for 10 years straight. Very queer, very counterculture, very progressive, you know, and that's what I did professionally for a decade. So my needs are, if I can go get a beer at the bar around some of the locals, and I'd be more than, let's not get, you know what I mean? If you're looking for subvertive nightlife, I wouldn't come to Davis, but.
Oh yeah, okay.
My needs are different too, to be fair, you know. But.
So now that you're mentioning your New York years, I was doing the research, and you were in music, right? In the music industry?
Yeah, for a very long time. This is a rattling from one of the, can you hear this?
A little bit.
Yeah, okay.
But we can still hear you perfectly, so yeah.
Okay, cool. Yes, I was a DJ. I went to NYU for my undergrad and got introduced to a bunch of really influential and amazing artists. And but when I graduated, I was a little disillusioned by trying to enter the art world. It just seemed a little heavy. So I went into nightlife and essentially learned how to DJ and created a collective. And we were a group of people who threw parties and DJ'd. And then from that came my record label, Doom Dab, which now it's the cat's out of the closet. It's bad mood backwards. It's the term bad mood, but backwards. So there's a philosophy there about sort of countering a lot of this prevailing negativity with positivity, which is a theme that I'm still
I like it.
Completely consumed by. Yeah,
I like it.
Turn your bad mood, you know what I mean, upside down kind of thing. And then we ran this record label, and I put out 2 reggaeton albums, like Reggaeton Dembao, called Mate y Agave, a nod to my Argentinian heritage. And then we helped create a platform for a lot of young queer musicians to sort of start their careers. A patch of, as an analogy, a patch of dirt or soil to plant their first seed, you know? And then they take the seedling and move on to bigger pastures.
Yeah. I
I'm
like that
distracted.
analogy.
But this is over.
Oh,
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we ran this record label and it was awesome, and we had a big impact in regards to what we wanted to accomplish, and that was my life for a long time, you know. And then I
so
started
where
painting
did you
full-time.
get this confidence and creative streak, you think?
My mother, who
Yeah.
my mother is she is an extremely emboldened and driven person. So she injected creativity and what we're now calling queerness, an ability to be as expressive and individualistic and fabulous as one would want, and took me to museums from my, we were regulars at the Metropolitan since I was 9 years old. And so I will always very intentionally credit with being enormously responsible for the way I am, and then my father creating a certain amount of safety and space and resources for me to then choose how I wanted to express that. But definitely my mom. I would consider myself a slightly more I was put through a different.
I don't want you to get you in trouble. Okay?
No, just put through a different strainer. I'm a different
Yeah,
version.
well, I did ask for the creative side, which obviously I think definitely.
And she's an artist. She's a full.
Yeah.
She's been my whole life pretty much has been a full-time artist, and yeah, it's important.
If she sees this video, what would you like to say to your mom?
Thanks, and let's keep crushing it. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like we're doing such a good job, and thank you. I love what I'm doing, so I couldn't think of doing anything else in the world.
Yeah.
Than living the way I have due to her. So yeah, and also the mother. We touched on it slightly earlier, but just this re-injection of goddess-based society, a feminine disposition, and prioritizing that as an absolute necessity, not a weird kind of byproduct of our child bearers. Like I don't know how to be, actually like that being the figurehead, the ultimate, like the mother as figurehead of all. That's where I like to come from it, and she inspired that as well.
AHBS. Oh, this was app. Yes, this was a project with another artist. This you were involved as a DJ or
no?
How was that?
Billy Shear. So Abs is the project under which we released this album Mate y Agave, which I think Billy Shear and I have known each other since we were 12 or something. We've been like brothers for 20 years, if not longer. And he moved to Brooklyn, and he's an amazing digital producer and an amazing guitarist. And we just locked ourselves in his studio for an entire winter. We had this period of time where we were living just a few blocks away from each other in Bushwick, in Brooklyn, and we just committed, and we drank a lot of yerba mate and smoked a lot of cannabis, and wrote this album, which is 8 songs, and I think you can still find it on SoundCloud. We're taking a little hiatus from the record label. I mean, yeah, no one has none of us would force it. So when we sort of ran out of steam for it, we let it lie dormant until we get excited about it again. I love the album. And then we released a remix version where we got 14 or 15 other producers from New York City and around the world to remix all the songs. And that's another version of it that's also out. And I'm really proud of it. And I got to perform songs, and I contributed a lot of songwriting and vocals. I'm on a lot of singing and rapping in a lot of the songs, and I'm a bit of a composer, not so much, but I don't have much of the digital knack. And and I got to perform, and I had all these huge gigs, and we got to take it across the country, and I got my rock star moment, which I needed.
Awesome.
I don't need it anymore.
So you know, about performing, like yourself being there and you know, doing the art right there, and how is that similar or different to putting on an art show? What's the feeling?
It's similar. There's a with live performance, I find like it's like having like fucking. Like it's just like you're just like you met someone one night stand and you're just like there and you're so caught up, and you know you're half not there because it's so ethereal and it's so present and quick and demanding, and you know you almost have to go out of body to some degree. It's much more animalistic, and then with having an art show, there's a tenderness to it. You know, you're present, and depictions of your soul are splayed all over a wall for sale, you know, and there's a tenderness and a sweetness, but everyone comes and they hug you and they say you did a good job and bring flowers, and it's like much more like making love for an extended period of time, you know. But those are they're essentially both sex, and they're very arbitrary.
everything goes back to sex, you know.
But I think that's a great comparison. That's a great analogy, because yeah, when you do an art show, like it's so premeditated, and well, things are like when you finished it and the day of the opening show, like it's there. It is what it is. Live shows can change. Something that could happen, like this is like this unpredictable factor of being live. The art is happening right there.
Yeah,
I imagine there is some of this in the art show as well, but I like that analogy. And how was the transition? I don't know if it was a transition or if both types of art were in your life since you were in New York. Was you know, plastic art part of your life already in New York?
Yeah, I haven't stopped drawing since I was, you know, I don't know, 11, let's say. You know, I've been drawing since then. I have been drawing and evolving and working on my ability to depict things with a pencil consistently forever. That's 22 years. So yeah, I've never not been an artist. I've been other things simultaneously, many, but I've never not been an artist. So the question is, how is it
Yeah,
changed?
like was there a transition, or was it like
between like when I was fully in music and nightlife,
yeah,
and partying a lot and really in it? Yeah, there was actually, and it's actually a really good story and something that I should have already planned on talking about. But when I there was a moment when I maybe turned like 28, and I was dating someone older at the time, and there was a lot of learning and growing to match that relationship, and there was another moment of it's all been enormous growth.
Was there any sex?
Was there any sex
Yeah.
in that relationship? Oh yeah, quite a bit.
Okay.
And also there was a lot of sex there's a lot of sex in nightlife, and Brooklyn that time was a very like, and it still is now, but it was this like sweep of techno was taking over Queens and Brooklyn, and it felt like the dark vampiric black fetish leather version of some hippie utopian explosion. It was a renaissance. It really was a renaissance before the pandemic. So yes, but I got really into mushrooms. I got really into learning into mushrooms and psychedelics together and separately. I got into mycology, the scientific study of fungi and their applications. I got really into mushrooms, and I got really into my research, and I got really into psychedelics, and I amassed this library, and I started experimenting with microdosing psilocybin mushrooms. I'm sure everyone at this point is familiar with the process to some degree, and not
so
personally,
much.
just conceptually.
Here, at least in Argentina, it's not so divulged. There are some studies. People are starting to learn about it. But what can you?
Here you're about to be able to go to Target, to the pharmacy at Target, and get them. It seems like it's the way the information is spreading is really exciting. You know, just when it's on Netflix and it's the most top watched thing, it just seems like the information. But that's a really good reality check, that information travels differently in different countries.
You mean the documentary Netflix?
Yeah, that Michael Pollan one, I guess, made a big splash.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean,
But anyway,
so
it's growing fast, but it's still a lot of people they don't know all the benefits and I don't know all the benefits, you know. How do we have access to mushrooms? How can it might help me, it might help, you know, Marcos or my daughter to do something that's more organic, more natural, and help with anxiety, maybe depression.
But there's a theory that mushrooms are psilocybin mushrooms. Psilocybin is the classification of mushrooms that are psychoactive. It's a genus. So within that, there's a ton of species. But psilocybin is one of the 2 or 3 primary compounds that cause psychedelic experience in mushrooms. So psilocybin is the umbrella term. But there's a theory that psilocybin mushrooms are responsible essentially for man's cognitive and spiritual evolution. Humans. Sorry. See, I'm a victim to my own misogynistic programming.
Yeah.
So there's a theory that hunter-gatherers would follow, you know, the trails of herding animals, and in their scat, in their feces, is where these mushrooms often grow. So naturally, you would have to experiment with all food sources. So, you know, they took them, and for those who are experienced, it can be an absolute indescribable revelation of spirituality and human spirit and connectivity with everything. That is an effect. That is, I'm underselling it, if anything.
Did you start researching this because you were not happy with how your life was going, or did you know?
No, it was just clear that it was time for change. And my point earlier was just that mushrooms and humans have been tied together forever, for many. So there's a lot of research. There's a lot of techniques. There's a lot of modernized techniques as to how to dose.
Was there a mentor guide?
Well, you know, that actually speaks back to what I was sort of sharing earlier about finding this lineage of artists here. I found that in thinkers and in authors and in researchers, but in books. So actually, it goes a lot farther than that. So personally, I just went to the most accredited thinkers on the subject matter, people like Jonathan Haught and Terence McKenna. There's a lot of people that have been doing this research steadily since the 40s. I think LSD was discovered in the 40s. So there's a lot to read. And if that's a resource somebody wants, anyone, I'm more than happy to share a reading list. But simultaneously, in place, it's a modernized, westernized sort of concept or approach. But in place of having a proper shaman, because when you get into ayahuasca shamanism and rainforest shamanism and any sort of indigenous shamanism, it's very immersive. It's a lifelong pursuit. It's like the utmost mastery of spiritual transdimensional potential, right? So shamans don't really exist so readily, if at all, in North America, say, you know? So in place of that, I founded the Chinatown Psychedelic Society in downtown Manhattan. Myself and 4 others, we essentially had a group of 5 researchers who worked collectively to experiment and to share information and sort of work through texts and do a lot more hands-on.
And which were the changes or the most positive aspects of it that you learned from studying this sort of medicine?
Yeah, and the cool thing about a lot of this native plant medicine is that it has very present personalities. So in a way, my mentor was the fungi. They make their intentions pretty clear, and they're pretty well heard if you're listening. So the changes were, I think I needed to pull myself past a certain regressive behavioral patterns, particularly with over drinking, over consumption, especially in nightlife. It's very tied, and alcohol. Alcohol was free for me, and drugs and alcohol were free for me for a decade, and it was part of my job. So I needed to, but it no longer felt satisfying or good. You know, it had reached. I don't tend to do things for too long past their expiration date. Sometimes it can take a minute, but I had reached. It wasn't gratifying, and it didn't make sense anymore. I was ready to evolve. So I started. So, and then, you know, with that openness, sort of asking the universe, like, where should I study? Kind of like what I did when I got here. It pointed me in the direction of fungi and psychedelics, and so it helped pull me out of sort of an alcoholic merry-go-round, and it took me out of there and put me back in the studio. And that's when I started painting full time, which was about 5 years ago. Showing, and it's all, and now I'm just really trying to work. So the show in LA was my first California show. I went into it thinking I was going to make art in a certain way, the way I had in the past when I lived in New York, and it didn't work hardly. I pulled it off, and it was a big success. But I had to really reconsider my creative approach and how I make art and who I am now, because I've changed so much. And it was a really exciting process because
Can you give some examples of that? What?
Yeah, I just thought, you know, I was working from this sort of like chaos based, like lock myself in the studio, go crazy. It has to be wild and impassioned. And that's how I was like, oh wait, this is feeling forceful. Like this isn't who I am anymore. You know what I mean? I'm actually much calmer and more meditative and happier than that. I can actually work from a position of peace and quiet and meditation, you know? So I pulled that show off, and I think you'll see the work. I'll send you images, or if I haven't already, but there's a lot of angst in it. I think you can feel the angst comes through, and I'm not trying to make angsty work. There's enough angst on our apps every single fucking day. You know, I'm trying to make inspiring work. So it was an incredible learning experience by putting myself through that, which almost ruined me for a minute. Like ruined me wanting to make art ever again. But then the title, which I had come up with months before, For Lasting Energy, essentially spoke specifically to the benefit of having the show, which was that if I want to have lasting energy and do this with longevity for a long time and growth and positivity, I had to have this show, and I had to change because of it. So obviously karmically right on point, but it was hard.
That's the other point. You know, that's the other point, that things don't always go, or maybe it's less common that things go as you expect, you know, but you learn, you grow from that, and you evolve. But again, it's going back to doing things, moving, trying things, getting out of, getting over your fears of being rejected, or, you know, what people were going to say about your art or things like that, right? You just went for it. And then maybe some things didn't go as you planned.
Yeah.
But you learn from that, and now you're in a more peaceful, more comfortable, joyful place, it sounds like. Well, I love your art, you know, that's so I'm glad, again, artists, you see really famous artists that they evolve, and their art evolves, and their personality is there, their passion. So I think it's really important that you love yourself first. Take care of yourself. You don't, and what you said too, you said you don't have that angst, and you don't have to suffer to be a good artist.
Yeah. No, I don't think I can do it that way. I know I can't do it that way. So if I'm gonna be, or if I am, or whatever, if I'm gonna be the best artist I can be, it's got to be happy, you know?
Absolutely. Enjoying what you're doing is so important. I'm going to give a personal example. You can see my hair. I'm an actor, and I was working with my hair all tied up, and I was in acting university, and one teacher told me, why are you doing that? Like, use your image. And I started losing my hair and letting it go, and it was like everything. I started enjoying, and started like one simple little act of letting my hair loose started helping me enjoying the process. I was like so tight, and like I have to get this right, and nothing good could come from that place.
Yeah.
You also mentioned in the previous conversations, you mentioned the archetypal trickster.
Trickster.
Yeah.
The archetypal trickster.
The
Archetypal
archetypal.
trickster.
Okay.
That's another branch of my research.
That's a new one. I would like to know.
Tell us about it.
A lot of indigenous cultures and actually all religions really that I can think of have a trickster deity, like a deity that teaches, and by tricking and by being irregular, by being counter culture, really. You know, there's examples that are really interesting, like I don't know, I can't think of them so specific. There's during very immersive rituals, I know of tribes that have a character that purposefully enters the very immersive spiritual religious town-wide ceremony just to fuck shit up and kick things over and yank people's hair and spit all over everything. And you think about the king's court's jester, you know, there's always one person who's allowed to speak in kind of blatant sarcastic truth, and that's the jester. You know, there's this in Native American northern Native American tribes, I don't know the names of them, but there's a blue coyote that famously led these hunters to peyote, which then was the discovery of this mescaline religion. The harlequin, you know, and in the history of art, there's also a lot of Picasso's famous alter ego was the harlequin, you know, and the harlequin is famously from the Commedia dell'arte, which is the Italian birth of comedy.
Do you have an alter ego?
Yeah.
Is it secret?
No, it's not secret. It's just amorphous. You know, it changes.
Oh yeah?
But it's definitely very trickster. And I think, I don't know how much it's still with me. There was a couple years there where I was really embodying that side of myself. The harlequin was this sort of big character, but I don't know, you know, and I have this, I'm playing with it. I'm figuring it out. I change so consistently, you know, I'm always changing and changing the fundamentals of who I am, like not so much at the core, but my interests and that, you know, that I think it changes with my interests. Right now, I don't know. I'm working on this book about Axe as this transdimensional superhero. And this is Axe, by the way.
Oh.
And then, you know, there's a character based on me in there that's sort of gender ambiguous and Latin. So I have that character that I've been playing with that's based on me, but a variation of for a long time. So that.
Wow. How many, like you want to publish that book, or it's going to be a play or something?
No, I want to publish it. I'm thinking franchise, but I think you have to start with the book first. So I'd like to see it as a video game. I'd like to see it as a movie, an animation, a play would be awesome.
Are you teaching now?
Well, yeah. So that's a whole other branch of all this.
That's a new thing. That's a huge new thing. That's huge.
Wow.
So I'm within the program. A big part of it is to teach and to be active and to TA, teachers assist the professors. And next quarter, I'm teaching my own painting class because I'm a second year. But the big takeaway for me, the biggest takeaway I think thus far, there's a lot. It's hard. I don't like comparative language, but I'm going to get my master's and then I'm going to be eligible to teach at universities and be a professor essentially. And that's something I really love doing and that I'm really good at, and it has real longevity. So I think I'm at the very beginning of a long career as a teacher.
Wow.
And for artists in particular, and in this country, because there's no government funding for artists, teaching is an incredible way to sustain ourselves without having to whore my work if I can't make ends meet. You know? So it's a relief. I'm really excited. I didn't know You know what I mean? And that's why you just said it again. You're like, we don't know what it's going to be at the end, but it doesn't really matter. That's the fun part. The fun part is the discovery. The fun part's walking on stage and seeing the crowd and being there, like that. Like that's what every great manifestation is. It's like this incredible stage. So you just put all your pieces where you want them. You make sure that you're as tight and sharp and focused and intentional, that you're the best you can be. And then what bad result could there be? It's all just discovery and fun. And that's a really good point you're bringing up. And I just want to touch in on it really quickly, because so often you feel like this true artist who's devoted their life is fuck the man. And, it's also like, no, if you are really talented and you make good pictures and you can commodify those pictures, and commodify the fucking pictures, make bank, you know what I mean? Get money.
Yeah.
And your art can always evolve. It can always transform. It can always be whatever you want it to be. Your big art, your masterpiece could be farting into the wind. You know what I mean? And that's like, and no one ever is even there to hear it, and you couldn't sell it if you wanted to. But so you don't have to give up vision to also move product. Like I know it's capitalist and it's mechanical, but it's also just practical. Like if it makes me happy to paint pictures and I can sell them, do so. And if you can crank more out, do so, because you'll make more money. So who doesn't want money?
And I know we're running out of time, but that's also, I like that you're combining teaching with also being an actual artist and you've had gallery shows, you've successful, people have, I don't know how we define success too, because sometimes we define success with money, commercial and selling stuff. Oh, you're very successful because you sold the whole show, all of your art. And unfortunately, a lot of people here tie with that. But you're able to say, look, I maintain my essence. This is what I like to paint. I'm not painting because I know what it's going to sell. You paint what you love, and then if it sells, great. That's kind of how you approach it, right?
Definitely. And I guess in a way I'm saying I'd rather just sell myself and my beautiful babies on canvas. You know what I mean? I'll teach, I'll go put on a show, I'll inspire the children endlessly and they'll inspire me. You know what I mean? And not just children and the students. I need to, I'm okay. I'll do the hard work. My art that's my heart. Like those are my bait. Like that's like, if I'm going to do this right and I'm going to do it honestly, it's very vulnerable. And I much rather just take the weight on myself and let them exist freely in the world, Yeah.
And that's
I hadn't thought about it like that.
That's like another key word that we use here, being vulnerable. And with artists, it's one of the most vulnerable ways. You open your soul, it's out there. But in any social form, being vulnerable is a way to really connect and be genuine. Show people who you are by being vulnerable. If you have a facade and you say what you think people want, or that's not connecting.
Or an alter ego.
I read in one of the interviews you gave was paint until you lose your fear. That was an advice you gave for artists. Can you elaborate?
We've been saying, which is like paint, be active, be mobile, get your heart rate up, cardio at a high heart rate for an extended period of time, you know what I mean? Until you're not fearful anymore. That's why often I go and I do an hour or more of hot yoga and I work out, and then I come into the studio because I've shaken off the insecurities that get all, like if the human mind is it's susceptible to dust, to psychological dust.
Self-sabotage.
You sit there. Yeah, you sit there for 5 minutes and all of a sudden you're just like anxious about fuck if I know. You know what I mean?
Yeah, who knows? It's stuff that never even happens,
Yeah, nothing. And not even no weight, no real value. So essentially what that means is just be proactive until you're emboldened. You know what I mean? Be proactive until you're just active.
Yeah.
Yeah. And not, fear is it's okay to be scared, but fear should be a calling card. If something scares you, that should guide you towards it, not away from it.
Yeah. That's what I say. Lean towards your fears. That's 100%. Where you grow. That's where you learn. That's where you just discover a new world type of thing.
I wouldn't be where I am if I hadn't made that my truest philosophy and meditated on it almost daily, you know? Let go. Hunt your fears. You know?
Even going after love. Takes a lot of courage. You know, you're sharing these stories, all the things that you've done, taking risks, and trying all these new things, and you're only 31, 32, 33. How old are you?
33.
Oh,
yeah,
33.
but I feel younger than I am. Yeah.
Just like Jesus.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like us and subscribe. This was our conversation with Alberto Hamonet. Thank you for watching.
Thank you so much.
Alberto.
Take care, Alberto.
Okay.
Best of luck, okay?
Much love. Talk to you soon.
Don't break too many.
This is the end of our episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next time.